the ones who arrived today, also welcome. We start this session here in Kassel, the first one to be happening during Documenta, that was intended to be as well part of a public program. Because of the conditions, hi Damendra, welcome. Because of the conditions of the COVID outbreak, we try to now actually uh, keep it more internal. So yes, let's take this opportunity to learn more about the time we will spend here in Documenta and the sessions that will come later. So first of all, we plan also to have like a guided tour of the space, but it's not going to be, well, so possible to do it today because there are still members of the Inland Academy arriving tonight. So tomorrow we will have the tour around the space. And but you can see the garden, and in the garden you can see Astrid and a colleague, just to say hello. Astrid runs Schmackes, that is a local group or organization of organic products, and together with them we paired to organize the cheese pavilion. So the cheese pavilion is now distributing our cheese together with their products and the cheese coin within it. Maybe we can take more time now to talk about the way in which we propose to be here in the space of Autonom of the Natural Science Museum, and we can actually rather go straight forward to the conversation. Just remind that at a quarter to 12 we will start to wrap up. So in and like in 40 minutes, 1 hour, we'll start to wrap up to get some food, and then later we will walk together towards the next part of the program. They talk about the economy. Maybe if some of you would like to also prepare in advance or order in advance a cheese sandwich, Anna or Indira can take your orders, so they have a little bit of the order in advance, and we don't flock there just 10 to 1, and actually at the moment I don't know if the cheese sandwiches you will get will have cheese coins, but we will have a lot of chance to distribute them. So then I would like to introduce you to Farid Rakun, and
hello.
Thanks a lot, Farid, for making the time. I know there are intense days. Yes. The group here is part of the process we have been running since January, the Inland Academy, and it's the communion of two previous educational projects, the Shepherd School and the new curriculum. And the participants of Inland Academy come from different fields as well, from the arts, from architecture, from working also in land-based projects and eco-villages, or studying agriculture, starting projects, for example, in rural Sardinia to recover the village as well. So what we have in common is this interest to expand the notion of the artist to be able to be agents of change in rural contexts, or to talk about the relation city-countryside and so on. I mentioned this because what makes us to feel so close to ruangrupa is not entirely necessarily the rural question, but is the social, the ideas around the possibility of bringing together different members of the society with a program for social change. So I don't know, how would you like to structure this conversation? I think there is one aspect that is to learn more about ruangrupa itself, its history and its composition and how it works, and maybe I can ask you some questions. And then I think that is the transition from what ruangrupa does in their everyday, in Jakarta and also elsewhere, because we actually met first in Sonsbeek, in Arnhem, then we met in Jakarta, when we met a little bit all around. But I think to maybe introduce some elements of Lumbung, and later to talk we have this opportunity to have here like in a little bit of a intimate context to understand more of your views of the process here and where we are now. It's also a little bit of a delicate moment, but I think it's interesting that we are also informed about that. We have been looking at this and we are working actually on the line of what we were discussing within Lumbung Interlocal to have the possibility of also contributing with proactive yet constructive actions during these 3 days. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But first food, like tell us a little bit, about what the path here, the path towards here.
Thank you very, very much, Fernando, and everyone to still be here with us. Something that we have spent a lot of time and energy on, and then also, of course, hopefully it's been enjoyable for you, because that's the most important thing for us. And then maybe I can start saying some facts about ruangrupa itself. It started in 2000 by a group of artists and art students, mainly actually. We were young ones. I wasn't part of the founding members. Only Ade stayed from those founding members. I think it was 6 or 7 originally, but only Ade stays up until today. And then ruang is space, rupa is visual. It's just like a made-up word to combine it. But why I say this is because making space is always important for us from the get-go, because we started to provide infrastructures, and space is one of them, to practices, at least from our own practices, that didn't have anywhere to go, at least at that moment, or interests that didn't have anywhere to go. From talking about urban situation in Jakarta, of course, we're a product of Jakarta. So as Fernando said, if you're rural, we're urban, but I think the boundary between those things are blurring right now. Anyway, sorry. And then video art, for example, as well, or talking to university students, making a forum for them from different universities, different type of disciplines. We made also because we were close to students at that moment, and then they asked ruangrupa to host something like a forum. And those kind of initiatives started and then began to be a regular thing every 2 years or every year, etc. Like one more example, maybe curatorial workshops and writing, curatorial and writing workshops, because in 2000 we started that in 2007. At that moment, curator as a species was kind of new to the Indonesian artistic ecosystem. So, and then we knew that we needed them. So instead, and there's no school at that moment that can teach people about curatorial things or how to become a curator. So we just like not knowing that much about it anyway, like not knowing that much about video art to begin with. When we started the video art festival, we just like use this type of initiatives because we're curious on how to do things. And then the curatorial workshop was only for 2 weeks, writing for 3 weeks, all those kind of stuff. But it has become useful for a lot of people. We stopped a lot of things in the process when the format or the responsibility became different through time. Like we stopped our curatorial and writing workshops, for example, when formal schools started their programs about curatorial thing and management, all those kind of stuff, so they don't need us anymore, let's say. And then we began, I think, like after around 2015, we started to see the opportunity, because Jakarta is not cheap, at least for us in Indonesia. So how to combine resources so we don't pay things twice, let's say, from rent to accountant, legal, cashier, all those kind of stuff shops. We tried to combine it with other collectives from Jakarta. That's one like 2016, 2017 was the first time that we coined the use of our use of the term lumbung, because we understand it like that. Like if you have money, for example, or whatever, then we just like put it in a collective pot, common pot for others to use. It has been an experiment since then, and up until now, it's actually useful because between the collectives, at least there are 3 collectives in our ecosystem right now that do Lumbung. Ruangrupa itself, Serum and Grafis Ruhara. We even got that transparent to each other that we can always look at each other's account, like the balance of the account. So if, for example, Ruangrupa is short on money, then we can ask Serum and vice versa and all those kind of stuff. Yeah, kind of. And then we call that ecosystem Good School right now, which is like another Lumbung member like Inland. The thing is their space is in the Fredericianum ground floor, and then you turn right if you just enter it. Yeah, it was established by Ruangrupa Serum and Grafis Ruhara in the end of 2018. We turn ourselves to an informal educational platform at that moment. That's why we call it Self Good School, because we realized a lot of interesting practice that we can share our resources with, history, knowledge, etc., etc. Happen not in the central series, or not on the central series of Indonesia. Cultural series in Indonesia is first Jogja, for those who don't know. First is Jogja, second is Bandung, and only third is Jakarta, because it's a capital, but much more business, etc. But yeah, where was I? No problem. Because of that, we turn ourselves into an educational platform. We cannot do it formally up until now because a lot of us didn't even graduate, for example. So there are a lot of bureaucratic limitations. So, and then by becoming informal educational platform, we tried to ask ourselves, because the intention was like for myself, for example, being part of Ruangrupa has taught me a lot, from the informally up until officially, up until now. So we were wondering whether we can actually share something that's kind of tacit as a knowledge, because a lot of the learning is not formal and measured, let's say measurable, tangible, but it's much more invisible, tacit, and it takes time to make our practice into a knowledge production and dissemination thing. In order it to be practiced, let's say, not only like, make it into a recipe and these are formulaic of like how to do this, how to do that, but to understand it fully and be replicable, I think it takes time. And then at that moment, when we established Good School, we call it already like the system that we're doing Lumbung. Then we got kind of like a question whether we're interested to even think about doing something like documenta. Then we learned from like Soundtrack, for example, before, and all those like, being invited as artists, collectives, in institutions, how extractive the system is, and then we just don't want to reproduce that. Extractive in the sense of like, we did something, we create, we show work and all those kind of stuff, but we couldn't take something back. Up until now, Ruang Rupa has never, or we've done a show as an artist collective in Indonesia only once. It's a solo show in Jogja, but never, as a solo show, it's only once. Several times we also showed in different, like in biennials and festivals, etc. But most of the works that can be seen of Ruang Rupa is actually outside of our own context. Of course, the infrastructural work is kind of different, making festivals, making music shows, concerts, etc., workshops, but as an artwork, it's not there, let's say. It's not that known. And then how to kind of like try to change this paradigm. Then we use, first we invite back, this is our journey, whether you are interested to become this part of journey, or documenta, not you maybe because it was finding property, so not themselves, but documenta. If they're interested, then the journey will become different, of course, which result after certain processes which can be seen right now or can be experienced right now by all of you. But the first thing is that like we should not only do this for the 100 days that we are doing it right now, but maybe there are, or it has to be sustained, at least the relations or other things. That then documenta is one important stop of the whole process, but it's not only going to be the only stop. Then we started, this is pre-COVID, so we were thinking that we could actually, like we were excited to plan our each of our travel dates and all those kind of stuff. In the end, it could only happen. This is in the beginning of 2019. In the end, it could only happen for a year, effectively 6 months before the lockdown happened everywhere. And then so we had to change a lot of things. We had to change a lot of plans, even like talking or originally Lumbung members should work with us as well to extend invitations to artists, but it didn't really happen because Zoom kind of made it difficult, let's say. But in the end, we're hopefully these kind of things will, like what you see right now, we call it Lumbung documenta version. Hopefully there will be other versions coming, like an album for musicians, no? So there are other versions. And then it also kind of like generative, what the lessons that we are doing right now, what we are having right now, and how it can determine what's coming up next. Maybe I stop there for now, if it's okay. Hopefully it's not too long.
No. And also that gives a space and possibility for others to form your questions. At the beginning, you were talking about the beginning of ruangrupa. It's interesting because it was also a very specific political moment, of Indonesia, the post-Suharto dictatorship, and the possibilities that were open suddenly to collaborate, to look at art and cultural creative expression otherwise. I wonder, in all this period as a collective, how did you work, for example, with the process of inclusion-exclusion? Because that's something that we also sometimes had to do that when we had like a social space and then a lot of people wanted to come, but it's like, well, it's also a living space for some people and they don't want to live like in a constant, although I've been in the good school space and run to house and it's really, really hectic. But yeah, I guess it's a process and the good school is also a way in which that enlarges, beyond ruangrupa.
Yeah, I think that's a negotiation thing, and every case is different. For example, we thought we could do almost the same approach here, for example, no, in good school, move it to Frederiциanum. Of course, it's not like that. This is documenta in the end, and then also security from practical things. Who can access the door of good school? If it's good school, we know how to play with it. But this is like, you know, or we learn how to play with it. But with the thing like a big exhibition like this, for example, then it's a lot of things become different. And then it's always that. It's tough to say inclusive and exclusive, but ruangrupa doesn't have members, for example. It's like keep on
growing
or even shrinking sometimes. So shrinking and growing, it depends on when you ask it. But we'd like to say it's like if you still have to ask, then you're not in. You know, if you know that you're in, then you're in. But yeah, that's again tacit, no? Like, am I part of you and all those kind of stuff. But it's a continuous negotiation, and then we don't always have people to keep on staying with us and all those kind of stuff. People can come and go.
By the way, good school space in Frederiциanum is where we will stay next time. So it's a house to share and to live together for around 40 people, I think.
38. To be exact.
Yes. Something that relates very much with the process of Finland Academy is the idea of occupying a space where there is no formal, for example, training offer or the education offer. There was nothing. So then you started good school and then later, you also moved to other places and you were interested on the possibility of knowledge production based on the practice. And I don't know if, for example, you would say that the distilled values of Lumbung as a humor and the other things, are a form of producing knowledge based on the practice. Were you happy with that sort of, as you said, not just making a recipe, like it works like this, A, B, C, but it's more like a certain guidance point.
In good school, we didn't know what to do either when we started, no? Like we could only imagine. Then from each year, let's say we learn something and we change the thing. Right now, we have like a regular program. Right now in good school here, we have batch 4 because it's 2018, 2019, 2020, and then 21 right now. So batch 4. But we're, because of COVID, of course, it has happened via Zoom, but that we use that opportunity to not ask people to move to Jakarta, but actually from other time zones can chip in and be part of be participants in the batches itself. And right now, after this, we're going to have batch 5 over here, but only for 2 months, not whatever 9 calendar year, academic year, but 9 academic, 1 academic year, maybe it means 9 months, but only 2 months in here. And then after that, I think we need to take a break from making those batches because we have to reflect. Also, a lot of us has been taken, at least partially, to do documenta as well. So it's good time to take a break and reflect what we can be next, let's say. And then, Lumbung is going to be part of that reflection.
I don't know if you have any question. Well, it's more of an internal meeting for the public academy members, so it's not
documenta is totally open to everyone.
Well,
everyone can join discussions.
Yeah, the public program at the moment is not public.
Oh, okay, so it's not so public. Okay, then I won't ask that question. Thank you.
No problem. So, is anybody from Finland Academy willing to ask any question or something?
We started.
that. Yeah, I'm very. I'm Mariana from the group. Met each other before. No, I'm curious about the process. I mean, I find very interesting collectives are starting to go into institutions and working with institutions, and how this somehow parasites structures that seem very still and very hard to change, but in fact, we are this. I mean, we can do it, and the fact that ruangrupa is curating this documenta, it's huge and very exciting. I know you have also experienced working with other institutions in the past, museums, biennials. And yeah, I'm just curious about that process, and also the, yeah, like how also the public somehow gets integrated in that process. That's too long.
I think, thank you for the question. I think though, we have to stop looking at ourselves as parasite for this one. Because, yeah, it's just like not useful anymore. It was useful for a long time. What we maybe one thing is that of course parasite is good, but like to be honest, right now we're not parasiting. We're
to place you within the usual parameters of functioning, and then you bring your own ways of doing it. So there is a space of total friction, and I think that one of the most valuable, let's say, aspects that you brought to this documenta is to reflect on the whole infrastructure, on how a big arts event works. For example, thinking the idea of the budget, how the budget happens, keep an equal distribution, a common pot. I don't know if you took a conscious decision on private funding, for example, gallery supporting artists. Or actually, none of us almost have a gallery anyway.
yeah,
so,
maybe only one or two.
Or two have galleries. So that's already a big difference. And then the idea as well of for example, the economy coming to the forefront with the kiosk and the gallery. I think there are two important elements, because I think that arts, as we see it often, it's more just a space of beauty and contemplation, and as we know, is eliciting, or how do you say, like living aside, not really being outspoken about the economical process behind, but you bring them to the front.
Yeah,
and then
right.
Then there is the question of, well, of press, no? How you work with the media, trying to create these spaces of just sharing and handing out.
Not giving press conferences.
Yeah.
Basically. That's one way street. We learn a lot as well from them, although, yeah. After a while, of course, after a while, you just have to pick it back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hi. Oh, wow, that's really loud. My name is Julia. Okay. I think it's interesting that you talk about rethinking parasitism because, and it just moving into this idea of symbiosis, because parasitism is a type of symbiosis along with like 4 other types of relationships. And I think something that I have really appreciated about ruangrupa is one of the things that you've brought in this symbiosis with community is your language and these terms that provide a new vocabulary for how, or at least for me, vocabulary that includes community care in art, which is incredible and something that I really strive to, and I think that our group is striving to do. I'm curious about other ways of symbiosis that you are building in your communities and what examples of that might be in terms of what you are taking in from people around you or what you feel like you've been able to share in addition to good school education. But I would love, it just seems like it's such a deep part of your existence. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that kind of fluxus between you and others as a group.
I think we're still learning even like about that. Care, how to care with each other and all this kind of stuff. Even right now, we know we didn't do a perfect job about it at all, actually. Especially in relation to exhibition making and working conditions, living conditions, and all those kind of stuff. Fair wages, but it's also kind of like even if we, at least for us, even if we do better than before, then it's like, then we learn something and we can keep on pushing. So it's not like a victory, a big victory at once. But I think it relates to, how do you say it? But it relates to the way you see yourself as well and agency, with Lumbung, at least like we had to specify even further what we have been doing because we're working with not only us but others. So we had to be much more sharper with values, for example. Are you generous? Are you sufficient? Are you so? Then it's just like taking the opposite of it. No? So if you're greedy and all those kind of stuff, which a lot of people are, and then also institutions are doing it, and all. So it becomes competitive when it starts to become competitive in a certain way. Then it's kind of like difficult to sustain the relationship. But if it's much more relaxed, I think, and generous in whatever meaning of that word, even when you don't have anything, give something, I think that's kind of like at least there's things that we're trying to do, whether we're successful or not. Sometimes yes, sometimes not.
I wanted to ask about the process of the research, the curatorial research for the documenta. Like, I mean, you have, like, which were the parameters that you started working with, and then how did you start making the connections between all the collectives around the global south?
Yeah, it changed because we couldn't travel, so first I think like when we started to keep on extending the invitations, like with the artistic thing first, and then afterwards with the Lumbung members, which Finland is a part of, because we knew from before what type of practices they do. So the first ring, let's say, is because of COVID as well. We compile practices that we can trust, that we can learn from, and then have the curiosity about. So we're curious about it, and then after that, I think there's the 2 rounds of Lumbung members. We thought we could make another 2, but like after 14, even spending from Colombia to Aotearoa, New Zealand, Zoom becomes impossible already. So that's too much to take and all those kind of stuff. We were also, it's different than now maybe, but we just started to get acclimatized with Zoom, so it's like gets tiring, let's say, and then a lot of things cannot really be replaced by Zoom interactions. And then we got the 14, and then after that we realized that we had to keep on our with the 14 at least we're talking about commitment for a long future, with what Fernando said before. That came from meetings with the members. But with the Lumbung artists, we thought since can be a test run, hopefully we can dismantle membership after this, because we don't also separate in our communication which one is. I think website, for example, everything is one, no separation between that, but administratively speaking, it's useful, so we know that. And then with the artists, it's a test, and then with different, much more relaxed demands, let's say. And we ask everyone not to be or at least question their competitiveness in such a group show by forcing them at first to speak to each other by another mini assembly or mini majlis, we call it. So mini majlis, so they can. Then Fernando said as well, there's a collective thought. It's kind of like an experiment for us to see whether, if you 5, let's say, are given a certain resource, like a certain amount of resources that you can co-govern together, what it could be. And then not only that, but also knowing each other much more better and all this kind of stuff. And then one last thing, maybe what you see, besides except the free channel, we didn't ask, or we didn't have a blueprint. We didn't have a scenography in order to put people before they know it. It takes a longer time, and then how negotiation happen, and then it stretches, let's say, before it actually kind of locked. It was nerve-wracking a lot of times, but this is the result of it, at least for us, it's not somatic, it's not our vision of how things supposed to be. At least that's the kind of things we play with. I don't know whether people will agree of what we're doing can be called curatorial, or we can call ourselves curators, because we don't call ourselves curators, but at least we know the way we want to, or mechanism we want to organize or produce something.
Artist, just wondering, so since maybe you don't feel good to call yourself creators, how do you define yourself then?
It's really hard. if I can opt out, I can choose not to define, and I would prefer that, because we just have the tendencies. But yeah, sometimes we're forced to like, here it's like artistic direction, not even artistic directors. It's artistic direction and all those kind of stuff. So we can play with it together. It's tough because then, at least for us, we got into those place or cornered into that game, Is this art? Is this not art? Is this creation? Is this not creation? And all those kind of stuff. Which for us, coming from our background, history and all those kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter.
Because I just ask this stuff because even connecting with Jean question, that you really did a great job with the glossary. Even with Lumbung, you just got name from Jakarta culture. You just been here, so it's something amazing that you're like making it international. So I just wondering, that maybe it's important the new era of the word, even to find a word or a definition to define ourselves, because even in this group that is very diverse, there's a lot of diversity. We are 20 people more or less, and some of us they cannot define ourselves like artists or even like either architects, even if we have a degree in architecture or whatever. So yeah, the glossary is something that is as you're saying, it's going on and it's growing. And
I think the idea of glossary, because we're lucky to be working with a lot of people that have a lot of great ideas. I think even glossary, we don't know whether the idea comes from, but at least we know it's needed, because otherwise we're just like talking in jargons all the time.
Hi, my name is Jens. I'm also part of the inline group. I'm sort of interested in, I just arrived, so I haven't looked around yet. But I'm interested in like the process of how you started. Was it started with the glossary, for example? Or did it start with the artists, with the artist groups that you wanted to invite in the process of making documenta exhibition? Is there like a way you like working where you start with the invite and then you formulate the glossary, for example, or the other way around?
Yeah, glossary comes later. As I said, I think we don't have originally an approach towards making glossary, but after a while, it was needed because even our team was confused all the time about what we're talking about. With us, the ruangrupa itself and the artistic team, maybe it's okay, but then the members, when we just got invited among artists, even them, they found it difficult to jump, as if they're jumping into the middle of a conversation, that there are certain terms that they just cannot understand what it means, what it refers to. So then it become like it's a useful tool to begin with. Yeah, I think it's out of necessity, basically.
I was thinking that something very impressive, and I think it has been a very big lesson and opportunity for learning for us as Finland, is the way in which you not represent certain aspects of political positions or ideologies by elaborating, as you said, the jargon, on the, for example, queer theory. You could be writing text and quoting and so on. That is like, or the colonialism or something. That is like how it's just it's made to happen. You know what I mean? Like it's immediate and it's just as you said, an incorporated or embodied practice. So that's gives a value that is much more than the reproduction of theories or references. So there are not many times in which I heard, like outspokenly a political position. And then the other question I want to say is I really admire as well the way in which you can carry like this massive endeavor of organization without like breaking down in terms of feeling like super stressed and so on. So I wonder if that's a form of wu wei, in the Taoist notion of not making or not putting like an effort, but actually more like letting things to happen and then flow with them.
Yeah.
Or if it's just an incorporated practice, it's just
yeah. Thank you for noticing that, the first one. Because we work with a lot of different people in good school, at least, different type of affiliations and positions. That's why we never, because a lot of times those kind of things are just like divisive. So either you're with us or you're against us and all this kind of stuff. But if we, at least in our space, it can be coming from different type of views, but then still working together. And then we learn also from a lot of characters that were formed to prove certain theories, horizontality, for example. They got too busy of proving that, then they're not doing anything else. Horizontality. They're too busy to keep everything horizontal and saying, but if like this, then it's not horizontal or something like that, then it's much more, their energy gets spent into those things without reacting really to what others need surrounding them. So that's the first one. And the second, we're stressed right now, especially. But we're just like, I think like, again, we're lucky to work with a lot of great people that can take the stress out of us. But it's also important to understand oneself as a host. And then if a host stress, the party, all the guests will feel that. I think at least from my experience. And then it's just not good to be stressed when we need to host. So we have to keep on saying that to each other up until now. Yeah, we need to rest. And I think we're fighting for it right now. Maybe the weekend will be off or something like that.
Thank you. I don't know, Yao and
I'm just wondering, how do you kind of balance the works that's happening on the ground? Say the good school in Indonesia, how do you keep that still kind of happening in the community while you are here, for example, like doing this connecting to other collectives on this side, or kind of our kind of collective action while still keeping the collective action on the local scale in Indonesia? Like, how do you roles that one is charged more on like the works on the ground, and then the other members are more kind of, well, I think both are equally important, because then you need to let people know what's happening and to connect to other collectives as well. But then that takes on so much time of the collective, and then how do you, just to make sure the works in the community on a local scale is still happening, while, for example, you have to spend so much energy in documenta.
Yeah, we realized that that's why we want to do something that we like to do anyway. So it's not that. That's why what we ask as everyone as well, not to make new work, but like to continue the trajectory that you have, and use this opportunity to do something further. With us, it's like being, of course, then it's natural for good school to be part of this. journey. And then luckily we have a lot of people right now. So some people, and then we have to travel in batches anyway. So some people are in Indonesia right now, some people are here and all those kind of stuff. Unfortunately, but because what we're doing is in line with we would be doing, so we don't think that it, like, you know, that it got taken that much, but we're taken, that's for sure. And then yeah, but because there are many of us, so far it's kind of fine.
Hi. Yeah, sorry? Yeah, I was wondering, yeah, how you, first of all, how you navigate in this, you're mentioning stress, or like how you navigate in this kind of metabolism that is also centered around execution and showing things, while also inherently balancing this with just existing as a human, or like just having, like, taking care of your collective and yourselves, and how do you balance that slowness that you're also trying to incorporate in this whole documenta, with also being in an executive space where you have to execute and you have to manage a lot of infrastructure or things and administrative things. Yeah, what tools of care do you implement in that work?
On that part, we're still learning as well, because we made a lot of mistakes. Basically, we're still making a lot of mistakes right now. We realized, as I said, it's not perfect at all, and caring and all those kind of stuff. Even people think that the structure, some people think, including maybe from inland, the structure that we've set is actually kind of like asking for so much, you know, so much engagement, so much time, so much talking, whatever. And then, but yeah, unfortunately, if we can make it organic, then it's good, because like you don't feel like it's work, you know. Maybe that's the key, in order to make something not feeling like you're working. It opens another problem, but so it doesn't solve. But also, I think we still keep on learning, even like when some of us got family, having children, all those kind of stuff. It was that moment when we realized that children should be part of our audience, and then Ruru Kids became, you know, so we didn't realize it before. So just like, again, maybe like coming back to the thing before, like it's not about trying to do something right, let's say, because we read it somewhere, or like, you know, correct, this is the correct way of doing something, but it's much more like, oh, it feels honest and right at one moment, and then including in that negotiation, I think, with different operating systems. But yeah, it's never easy. Up until now, we're still struggling in that sense. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for everyone. Looking forward to all the process you are going through.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to meet you and be in chat.